The roar of engines echoed across the highway as the sun dipped low behind the California hills. The air smelled of gasoline, leather, and freedom, the scent that defined the Hells Angels. At the head of the pack rode Jack Bear Callahan, a man whose reputation alone could silence a room. With tattoos crawling up his arms and a beard thick enough to hide a grin or a snarl, Bear was the kind of man nobody wanted to cross. He wasn't just a biker, he was the president of the Redwood chapter, the one everyone looked up to, or feared. But under all that steel and leather, Bear carried something most men in his world didn't dare show, a conscience. He didn't talk about it, not even to his brothers, but when he'd founded the small diner attached to their clubhouse, the Rusty Hog, it wasn't about money. It was about people. About giving those who had nothing a second chance. Ex-cons, addicts, people trying to start over, they found work there. And that's how Maria came into his life. Maria was quiet, always wearing her dark hair tied back, her eyes down. She'd been working the grill for 3 months, and though she never smiled much, she cooked like an angel. Her food could calm even the roughest biker after a long night of roaring engines and wild fights. She never complained, never asked for anything. Bear noticed her silence, but he also respected it. Everyone had ghosts, and in his world, you didn't dig unless someone asked you to. Until one Thursday night. It was late, around midnight, and most of the club had gone home after a long ride. Bear was doing his usual, counting the cash from the register and cleaning up. Maria was wiping down the counter when he looked up and caught something strange in the flickering neon light. Her lower lip, swollen, purple. He frowned. "You all right, kid?" Maria froze. The rag in her hand stopped moving. "Yeah," she said softly, not meeting his eyes. "Just burned myself." Bear leaned on the counter, his massive forearms folding together. "Burns don't look like that." She didn't answer. Just gave a small nod, as if that would make him drop it. But Bear didn't. He'd seen those kinds of marks before, on his mother when he was 12, when his stepfather used to come home drunk. He remembered the sound of knuckles against skin, the way his mother would cover her face and whisper, "I fell, Jackie, I fell again." He'd believed her the first few times. Then he'd stopped believing. And one night, when he was 16, he'd made sure that man never came home again. So no, Bear didn't walk away when he saw those bruises. He didn't press her either, not then. He just nodded and said, "Go home. Get some rest." But as she left, he followed her. Quietly, on his Harley, far enough behind that she wouldn't notice. She lived in a rundown trailer park at the edge of town. When she stepped inside, a man came out of the shadows near the porch, tall, with greasy hair and a cigarette dangling from his lips. Bear watched as Maria froze again, just like she had in the diner. The man said something sharp, and she flinched. Then he grabbed her arm. That was enough. Bear revved the engine once, loud enough to make the man turn. Then he killed the light and walked toward the trailer. "Who the hell are you?" the man shouted. Bear didn't answer. He just kept walking until the man's smirk disappeared. Maria whispered, "Jack, please, don't," but he held up a hand. "Go inside, Maria." The man puffed out smoke, trying to look tough. "She's my woman." "You got no right." Bear's fist connected before he finished the sentence. The man crumpled like a rag doll, hitting the ground hard. Bear crouched over him, voice low, dangerous. "You touch her again, and you'll be eating through a straw for the rest of your miserable life. You understand me?" The man spat blood, eyes full of hate. "You don't scare me." Bear's jaw tightened. "Good. Then you'll remember this better." He didn't hit him again, not that night. Instead, he pulled out his wallet, tossed a few bills on the ground, and said, "That's bus fare. You're gone by morning. If you're not, I'll make sure you disappear another way." The man sneered, but Bear's stare was enough to freeze him. Maria stood there, shaking, tears streaming down her face. "You shouldn't have done that," she whispered. Bear turned to her gently, his voice soft now. No one gets to hurt you. Not while you work for me. Not while you're part of my crew. She looked like she wanted to argue, but then she broke down. Bear didn't touch her, didn't move closer, just waited. Sometimes, silence was louder than words. That night, Maria didn't go back inside the trailer. Bear took her to the diner, gave her the keys to the small staff room in the back. It wasn't much, just a couch and a cot, but it was safe. The next morning, when the other bikers came in for breakfast, they found Maria cooking pancakes like nothing happened. Only Bear knew the storm she'd come from. But news in the biker world travels fast. By noon, one of the younger angels, Rico, came up to Bear. "Heard you roughed up some guy last night." Bear didn't deny it. "Yeah." Rico smirked. "Guy had it coming?" Bear's tone was ice. "He hit a woman." That was all he needed to say. By sundown, the entire chapter knew, and the rules were clear. Maria was under their protection now. Anyone who messed with her would deal with the angels. Weeks passed. Maria slowly began to smile again. Her bruises healed, and she started singing softly while cooking. The diner became warmer somehow. Even the toughest bikers softened around her. She'd pour coffee for men with scars and prison tattoos, call them sir, and they'd stammer out thank you like schoolboys. But the peace didn't last. One night, when the angels were holding a charity ride for local kids, something Bear had insisted on despite the grumbling from rival clubs, Maria disappeared. Bear didn't notice at first. It wasn't until closing time that he realized she was gone, and her apron lay on the counter. Then he saw the note, "He found me. Don't come." His heart went cold. Within minutes, engines roared again, the Redwood chapter mounting up like a small army. They followed the trail to the outskirts of town, where an old warehouse stood, half-burned from years back. The same man, Maria's ex, had been spotted there by one of the locals earlier that day. When Bear kicked the door open, the scene inside froze him. Maria was tied to a chair, her lip bleeding again. The man stood behind her, holding a knife. "Let her go," Bear said, voice calm but laced with fury. The man laughed. "You think you can take her from me, old man? She's mine." Bear's brothers spread out behind him, silent as ghosts. "Last chance," Bear said. The man pressed the knife closer to Maria's throat. "Back off, or she dies." And then, something unexpected happened. Maria, trembling but fierce, whispered, "Do it, Jack." Bear's eyes met hers. She wasn't asking him to save her. She was asking him to stop running from his own past, to make sure no one else suffered like she had. Bear stepped forward. The knife nicked her skin, a thin red line forming. Then Bear moved like lightning. His hand grabbed the man's wrist, twisting it until the blade clattered to the floor. In one brutal motion, he slammed him against the wall, his fist cocked back. "Please," Maria said softly. Bear froze. He looked at her, really looked, and saw not fear, but strength. She didn't want revenge. She wanted peace. He dropped the man. "You're done," he said, his voice low. "If you ever show your face in this town again, I won't stop next time." The police found the man an hour later, half-conscious, still babbling threats. They took him away, and that was the last anyone heard of him. Maria never spoke much about that night, and Bear never asked. But something changed between them. The diner became more than a stop for bikers, it became a refuge. For runaways, veterans, women who'd seen too much darkness. Bear and Maria ran it together, side by side. She handled the kitchen, he handled the world outside. Years passed. Bear's beard turned gray, but his presence remained as strong as ever. On Sundays, the Rusty Hog would fill with laughter and music. The same men who once brawled and drank now helped serve food to the homeless. And in the corner, there was always a small sign that Maria painted herself, "No one eats alone." One night, after closing, Bear sat across from Maria with a cup of coffee. "You ever think about what could have happened if I didn't see it that night?" he asked. Maria smiled